Hello there. Well, that's that then. Rishi Sunak has now destroyed any chance of salvaging anything at the next general election. I've said in the past that Labour will be worse than the Tories with the Channel Crossers because they will just rubber stamp everyone in. But Rishi Sunak has beaten them to it. He's basically bowed to the wishes of the WEF, the UN and the Council of Europe's ECHR. The Times is reporting that hundreds more asylum processors have been hired and that the interview time has been reduced from 7 hours to 45 minutes. Now, if that's not a rubber stamp amnesty, then what is it? But it's worse. Applicants from some countries, that's Afghanistan, Eritrea, Libya, Syria and Yemen, and some claims from Sudan, will be accepted without interview. And they're looking to see how much further the process can be streamlined, with the caseworkers getting performance-related pay for meeting targets and using automation. The traffickers will be rubbing their hands with glee. They just got a massive boost to their income. And chancers will be relishing the thought of just getting a toe in the door, because that means they're here for good. And the result is that once processed, they are turfed out of their plush hotels and turn up at the local council and present as homeless. And this is the beginning of another crisis, with some councils considering the use of places like leisure centres to house them in. So we can't put them in places like barges and barracks when they first come here. No, it has to be better accommodation than our armed forces enjoy. But once they're accepted, it seems that a barrack-style setup in a leisure centre will be fine. Until the do-gooders get the local councils into court, that is. Pity no one does the same for UK homeless people. All I see happening is the Home Office sending the money it currently spends on hotel accommodation to local councils to pay the continuing hotel bill until the occupants can find some gainful employment. And while they process the claims for their families to follow them here via a safe route. All Rishi Sunak and Suella Braverman have done is pushed the bottleneck further into the country in the hope it will dissipate, while turning up the strength of the magnet. And if they can't get a well-paid job, one assumes they'll pick up loads of benefits to get them into a family home. Houses that we don't have. Great way of increasing rents and house prices though, isn't it? One council is said to be close to declaring an emergency over this mounting issue. And we've already seen one block of brand new student accommodation being repurposed into asylum accommodation despite contracts having been signed by students and parents. They ended up with no accommodation at the last moment and are scrabbling round to find somewhere else. Now, because of the growing scale of this problem, that will now not ebb at all, both the Home Office and the local councils will not want to be bothered to find tens or even hundreds of thousands of individual flats and the like. They will want to block buy or block rent. And that's what we'll be seeing. Large block bookings just like they do with hotels. And new builds could well be where we start to see this happening. In fact, it has started in Langtoft, Lincolnshire, using central and local government money to buy them. This government has now collapsed. It is mere rubble. It governs in name only and has given up on the people it is meant to protect. In fact, the powers of the state are now being actively used against its own people. And I wonder how many of these interview staff work from home. After all, the Mail on Sunday has found out that within HMRC, 10 million calls to the taxman are going unanswered a year, as it is revealed that 80% of all HM Revenue and Customs staff now work from home. Anyway, I cannot see how Sunak's Tories will ever recover from this revelation. And they've just made it so much easier for Labour to open the borders even wider, give votes to all residents, including foreigners, over the age of 16. And this time there'll be no Corbyn factor that will turn people away from voting Labour. And if Rishi thinks a faint-hearted attempt to look like he's getting all net zero sceptical is going to work, he's in for a shock. And I have to wonder how many letters of no confidence are now lodged in the safe of 1922 committee chairman Sir Graham Brady. Will we soon be seeing Rishi Sunak go the way of his predecessors? Then what would we get? And in the latest wheeze to try and garner support for his party, Sunak is reportedly going to face down the formal advice of the Climate Change Committee that wants to stop all airport expansions, says the Telegraph. There is growing concern amongst Tory MPs that the green agenda is costing the taxpayer and consumer too much money. Meaning, the public's caught on, they know it, and they need the votes. But the Green lobby is gearing up to fight this refusal to the courts. And a High Court judgment has already said the pronouncements of the Climate Change Committee must be given considerable weight. So you know which way that particular cookie will crumble in the courts. In fact, I would bet that government lawyers will soon be telling Sunak he can't win this one either, just like the legal advice he got when he suggested blocking Sadiq Khan's ULEZ expansion. And if he is successful in getting more runways to boost the economy, under the UK's very stringent and binding net zero laws, he will have to cut carbon emissions elsewhere, in road transport or industry, for example. Because he's not going to be able to change the laws. He isn't brave enough. But he's also announced a review into all these anti-car schemes, like low-traffic neighbourhoods springing up all over the place. And Sunak hopes that all this, as well as announcing he will in future be taking a proportionate and pragmatic approach to net zero, will put a sheen on his party's electoral chances. But as they say, you cannot polish a... well, you know what. And all this added expense of finding homes for new people, both legal and irregular, and spending oodles on net zero, comes along just as schools, hospitals and court buildings look set to be shut down because they're made out of the wrong type of concrete. And this is one hell of an expensive problem. A problem that has been festering for decades, known by local councils and central government alike, and all the civil servants as well. And when these buildings do eventually get properly refurbished or knocked down and rebuilt, will they be repurposed to house the ever-increasing number of English Channel newcomers? And if all this does not convince you that the uniparty blob holds the ordinary citizens of the UK in utter contempt, then what would convince you? The uniparty blob is dancing to the tune of another master, and that master is neither voter nor taxpayer. And Keir, the Neela Starmer, will continue this grand tradition of leading the voter up the electoral garden path and then dumping them for his WEF buddies in Davos. Remember, Starmer did tell Emily Maitlis, former BBC, now in LBC Radio presenting for the newsagents, he told her that he preferred the Davos way of doing things over the Westminster procedure. You vote for the uniparty Lib Lab Green Con at your own peril.